Thinking, and we'll just smile. Okay, here we are. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Fitness Managers Report. I am here with Nicky Sehgal. We'll talk more about his business and all about what he is ready to share with us today. But today's topic is specifically about the business of fitness management. And Nicky is the owner and head coach of the Fitness Business Development Academy. And we originally met through TeamUp, another software company that we both provide business coaching and education for. That in our introduction, I couldn't help but hear the way he spoke about business, especially in the fitness industry, and how I know coming from the side of being a fitness manager and speaking to all of you as fitness managers, we can think so little of ourselves as far as what the kind of influence we have on the businesses that we serve as managers. But if we can really speak the right language, as Nicky had said just out of off camera before we went live today, speak the right language with your owners and managers that are above you, that you're working with to help get what you want and help really share what's most important for your specific department, as well as just understanding your bottom line of a business within a business. That's how I always like to think about the teams and the departments that I oversaw within health clubs. And Nicky, we're so grateful for you coming to be on this channel because, as I said, he mostly is speaking to business owners, but I'm really excited for all of you to hear him answer the questions I have for him today to describe how this relates to fitness managers.
I appreciate you having me on, Stacey, and looking forward to try and share some of the stuff that we've learned on our side with studio owners and bootcamp owners and gym owners. And a lot of things are relatable to the management position, but hopefully I can get some insights to like how owners think. So like from a fitness manager's point of view, not only the skill's a bit more challenging, right? You're managing down, but you also have to learn how to manage up to kind of get the most out of your position. Otherwise, you get told what to do and you try to do your best, but the communication is not two ways, and then it's a struggle, right? It's frustrating. That's the word to use. It can be super frustrating because as a fitness manager, you are trying to do the best you can, but owners have a different set of pressures that they're going through. So it might seem that what's this girl or what's this guy on about? Doesn't she know or doesn't he know what's going on? But you don't see what pressures they have. And obviously, with what we do at Fitness Business Development Academy, we predominantly work with the owners, so we get to see the pressures, especially the financial pressures that the owners are under and why they make these decisions, which might seem crazy, but they have their own reasons for doing it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I think we have these stakeholders, right? Exactly. The, upper management or ownership, and then the members and instructors that we serve as managers, and trying to find that balance, which I think you can definitely help us today. My first question for Nicky is, as you learn more about his team and his business after this podcast, I'd love for him to share your core principles for your business that you help guide other businesses with.
Yeah, sure. So over time, and this really comes from like me having my own personal training studio and living it and going through it and know what it's like. But really, this is from an owner's position. I'm going to try to relate this back to the fitness manager. But there's a lot of pressure under ownership, especially financial. Gyms are not cheap places to run. Okay, and cash flow tends to be a lot worse than what is made out a lot of times. So even though people will just see the revenue, how many members are there, you'll do the arithmetic on like what they're bringing in, but what you don't see is what's going out. And it's a lot, right? So the number one core principle we help guide the business owners is like, look, you always got to manage yourself before you manage your businesses. It's kind of ironic that as health professionals or within that industry or personal trainers, even fitness managers, sometimes the stress can get to us, right? So we tend to then live not as healthy as we could, even though we teach this all the time. Okay. And I'm no, what's the word I'm looking for? Exception to that rule. When I was running my business compared to when I was just a trainer, I definitely put on a lot more weight, was a lot more unhealthy. It happens to all of us. So like the key rule is manage yourself before you manage your business. Make sure that you stay on top of your health, on top of your happiness. as you run the business or in that management position, because we're working with people, and it's emotional. Like the whole industry is emotional. Okay, like you are dealing with people who are struggling to lose weight or fitness. And then as a fitness manager, you've got now a team to deal with who want to get paid more, that have their own issues, and then you have your boss or owner who's demanding other things. So you got things coming in from like all angles, right? All angles, right? And it's the same for the owner. And mate, that can lead to stress, and then that can have an issue on like how well you perform, right? So managing yourself before you manage your business is the key thing. And what we say is like, look, just think about it as like, no matter how good you want to do within your role, just play the game at 80%. Because when you take a little bit of emotional energy out of it, you actually do a better job. When you're 100% invested in actually like making this the best thing, the emotional energy starts to drain you, man, right? It starts to drain you. And you would have experienced this yourself, Stacey, for sure. We all do, right? Owners, same thing. But what we find is like the question I always asked, or the statement I always tell our clients, look, if you were working for someone else and it wasn't all yours, like how would you get it done? I just do it. I was like, same thing as an owner, right? Just do it. And then just move on to the next task. It only needs to be 80% brilliant. It doesn't need to be 100% brilliant anyway, but just keep the thing moving, and that can help de-stress you and make you better at what you do, right? The second thing is like enjoy the process. Now, again, this is hard. Just a little background on me. I was lucky enough to sell my business as an ongoing concern. But it was only till after I sold my PT studio that I realized like the best part about it wasn't the outcome. All right. The best part wasn't the sale and the finances that brought with it. The best part was not knowing what was having to figure it all out, I guess, right? Having to figure it all out. But at the time, it was super stressful. It was absolutely, it's only when you can reflect afterwards, you're like, that was the best part. That was actually the best part. Is like, I'm not quite sure what to do, but like, how can I figure this out to massively make this work and take the business to another level? And it's the same within, if you're managing a team, a big thing is obviously like finding trainers, keeping trainers or instructors, and keeping them happy with the budget that you have. But if you can solve that problem, although it could be super stressful, like, yeah, it's great, right? Not many can solve it in the industry. So like, think about like, if you can solve it, like how good would that be for the gym that you're in, and also for you as a fitness manager, right? So it's really important to enjoy the process, because the process is everything. Okay. Third one is simplification. Too many times, like we see this a lot in business ownership, is the reason why they can't scale their business is everything's just too complicated. Everything's too complicated, right? And when we look at what's successful in the business world, I always go to say what you want about them, but I always look at Weight Watchers and Slimming World is like, as a scalable model, it's so simple. And even in the class environment, you've got Les Mills, Body Pump and Body Pump, like it's so simple, like it can be scaled to different things.
Formula.
If you take that principle and then put it into your day-to-day work at being a fitness manager, what's complicated right now? Like what's friction, what's causing the friction? And then like, how do we make this easier? How do we simplify it? Because as soon as you simplify it, human beings just work better when it's just ABC, 1, 2, 3. I think I heard it saying the other day, is like, if you want to impress people, make it complicated. If you want it to work, keep it simple, right? And I love that.
Love it.
This is exactly what it is, right? But too many people make it too complicated. So always look for simplification. It'll make your life easy, and it'll make the business or your department just run better, right? The fourth one is like, stay humble but stay hungry. This is definitely more towards the business owner than the fitness manager, because if you do it right, you do tend to make a lot of money, and like you don't want to turn into a so-and-so. Like when you're that, you want to stay humble, but you also want to stay hungry, because there isn't really no end. Success kind of like makes you want to have more success, right? It's almost like likes on Facebook or hearts on Instagram, right? It's kind of addictive, right? Success is the same. It's quite addictive. Once you get that high of like being successful, let's say within a fitness manager role, you solve the problem, it feels good, right? And then you're always looking for that next feel good factor, right? Which is probably going to be a bigger challenge that you have to face and solve. But that's why we use that stay humble, but always stay hungry, right? How much more can you actually get out of yourself to make the business that you're working in better, also your own career, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, like the 1% rule. This is not only specific to fitness business owners, but just people in general. I think there's no real shortcuts. There's no real shortcuts to success. It's just about building on what you have, like one floor at a time, 1% at a time. And there's something called the margin of aggregational gains, which is a philosophy that we subscribe to, which is probably the best way to success, right? Over a long period of time, if you could compound it, you're much, much more likely to have a longer term success than if you have like a rapid rise. You tend to see a rapid loss at that period of time. So they're really the core working principles. A lot of them can be taken into like personal development as well, but they're used for business ownership.
I love it. Yeah. And what's interesting is the next questions I have for Nicky, they relate back to those core principles. I'm sure over and over again, as you're working with business owners and managers, you're able to refer back to those 5 principles easily. So I'm so grateful for you sharing them, because they are very valuable, I think, for anyone in the fitness industry, whether they own their own business, they manage a team, or even they're teaching classes and working with clients. Those 5 things
Yeah,
are just as valuable.
Yeah, as you were speaking, I was thinking, like, as a fitness manager, you could definitely take these to your instructors, and
Yeah.
when they're asking for things like let's say a pay increase, like okay, that's fine, but what can we get out of them more to actually what's the word I'm looking for? Them to earn that extra money, right? For lack of a better term, right? So yeah, if you can get more out of them and bring more revenue into the company or the business through the instructor, then they're 100% worth more. So they can earn their fees, right? Rather than just pay them extra because the business next door is offering a little bit more. And
Exactly.
different way of thinking, right?
Exactly. And that actually brings us to the next question, which is, when I was investigating more about your tactics as a business coach, I was recognizing your margin calculator. And I'll share the link to the landing page in the show notes once this interview is over. But when it comes to compensation, what's the number one mistake that you see fitness businesses making in this industry?
Yeah, I'll go back to the first mistake I made when I hired my first staff. I thought, like, what would I want to get paid as a personal trainer, right? And I paid my first staff member that same amount, and I realized it was way too much. So that's the biggest issue, is like with finances or with numbers, you have to work backwards. You have to work backwards, right? You have your market rate, but you don't always need to pay your market rate, and you definitely don't need to pay the most, right? There's other ways you can like bring instructors, personal trainers into a team and still pay them less, right? But so the first thing I would say is like, okay, know your margins. Typically, this is for more PT based. We advise our clients like, look, you cannot. The maximum you could pay your PT is 40% of the income coming in. So let's say if you get $100 for a personal or semi-personal training, then $40 is the absolute max that you can pay the trainer. So what we do is work backwards. So we would create a what we call a staff life cycle. So we'd have like, okay, a master trainer, senior trainer, junior trainer, and an apprentice. But we start at the end, all right? So we say, okay, just for maths, I'm saying it's $40. And then we'll work backwards. At this stage, it'll be 35, this stage will be 30, and initially might be 20 as an example, right? When they come in, they start at the bottom. And no matter how experienced they are, we would always start at the bottom. We don't base it on time, on like how quickly you can move up. We base it on performance,
Yes.
So there's certain metrics of performance. If your classes are full, or if you're bringing more people in, or even better, if your let's say Instagram following is bringing people into the gym, that brings new revenue, you are definitely moving up faster to that, right? And that's one of the ways you can actually get them to earn their own extra pay if you set the systems up right? If they've got the following, or if they've got people that can be brought into the place, right? The second thing is really about the pay is set up that staff life cycle. Okay, if it's just a flat rate, and this is a problem I face in my own studio, is like, where do they go from here? In the industry as a whole, globally, there is no career pathway. And
Nope.
that's a problem, right? So
Yeah.
I was a fitness instructor, then a personal trainer in a gym. Then they wanted me to be a studio manager. I don't want to go down that route, right? I wanted to be a trainer at that point, but there was nowhere to go other than leave and try and start my own thing, which was a massive learning curve for me. As I went out and tried my own thing, failed, and learned, and then eventually was successful. But here's what I found when I was bringing my own trainers in: is like I had nowhere to go with increasing their wage because I was at max already, and that caused massive resentment. So the next person I brought in, I made sure that what I did, I looked at other industries, I looked at law, I looked at accounting, I looked at medicine. I was like, how do these people keep their people within their industry for a whole lifetime? And you will see that there's progressions throughout the whole system. There's somewhere to go, and with that tends to be more compensation, more purpose. So I was like, right, how do I do that within my own fitness business? Hence creating the staff life cycle. And what you find is if someone goes from 20 to 25 or 25 to 40, they're happy. Okay, it's not so much the money itself. They're happy that they've got more money, and impression. And that's you created to sustain instructors for a certain lifetime. Okay, typically what would happen at the end when they're at 40, if you don't, and this is another saying I have, is like, you've got to create a game that the staff can always win, but that game can never end. Because if the game ends, they're going to go and look for something else. You're almost forced to create new opportunities to keep your staff members within your company. Don't fear that. It's a good thing, right? It's a good thing because it makes you grow the business a little bit more, right?
Yeah, and I love how in the margin calculator videos that you share, you describe that as a trainer or an instructor goes through that life cycle, their value and the amount of work that it takes to keep them successful goes down. Like their value goes up and the work that it takes to work with them goes down. And they can probably help your newer instructors, newer trainers coming in. So the increase in pay is warranted. And I'm so glad you said performance based because sometimes I'll interview trainers and they'll say, okay, so when can I expect, before they're even hired, an increase in pay? And I really have to explain to them, it's up to you. It's up to your performance. We will increase it if you do this, this, and this, but the time thing is not relative to me. I've seen some really bad trainers who've been coaching for a really long time.
Yeah, and wait, we live in a world of again, I forgot the word I was looking for, but they expect things before they've actually performed. They expect things before they've actually performed, and right from the onset, if you make that clear in the hiring process, it's all about like your performance. It doesn't matter where you came from, whatever. I always found like with trainers who were already around the industry for a while, it was almost harder to take those mistakes out of them and teach them new things rather than like trainers who've been in the industry 1 or 2 years, which was my hiring process. Still fresh enough, but had a little bit of industry experience. They were they were more coachable for me. So I tended to go for that type of coach.
Agreed.
And then we had in-house training systems to make them better. And that's a way that we were able to like pay them less to start because it was the training that kept them in and made them like industry gold standard people, and they've gone on to do their own careers now. But that learning would have been massive for them, right? And I would just go back to how I was hungry as a trainer, right, to learn. It wasn't so much about the money at the start; just you want to get better, right? And it's over years, it serves its purpose to where you are or where we are today as the FBDA, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The last question I have for Nikki is when I visited your website, the quote that stood out to me was success leaves clues. No need to reinvent the wheel. And having just come from the Idea World Fitness Convention, which was really good, I happened to walk the fitness center floor and I was entertained by the, people I see experimenting with new pieces of equipment, new shiny, recovery. One of them was called the Fountain of Youth. It's basically like a room that you stand. It was like hundreds of thousands of dollars to put in your facility. These I guess, unique offerings you think will change up the business and make you unique and different, but could be very far off of your business model. So I just loved that quote. If you can elaborate more on that, and how do you help your business owners and leaders identify and evaluate what makes sense for their business?
Yeah, this is a shiny new object syndrome is probably the biggest trap for entrepreneurs and also people in good careers, right? Like fitness managers. Because here's the thing, people are always looking for the next way to make profit from a business owner, or how do we get more customers in, but they forget about the customer. They forget about what the customer wants. So you have Jane, who's 48 years old, overweight, very intimidated by gyms, and she's coming in. She still needs the basics, and we forget when we're in the industry, like it all goes down to basics. And over the 23 years I've been in the industry, the society is not getting any healthier, right? It's getting worse. So it's like you probably need to regress it more than progress it to these fancy stuff, right? So like when I say success leave clues, the most successful business owners, they tend to stay focused on the one thing for longer. Okay, and that's a massive trend we see. Those people that can stay on the same path without getting distracted by new shiny objects, they tend to be better because they don't lose focus on the main project. When you're bringing new things in, it's just like your brain capacity can only work so much, right? There's only so much thinking you can do each day. Like, so bringing a new product or service into the marketplace or into your gym, when the first hasn't been fixed or there's still problems there, is gonna like keep that problem there and just give you another problem. It's just going to give you another problem, right? So I think when success leaves clues is you need to be looking at the majority of people, and I would always say look outside the industry. Okay, don't look in our industry is still young. It's very, very young still, right? So there's a lot of learning still to do. But if you look outside the industry, like those who are successful tend to stay on the same path. Warren Buffett is a classic example of
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
yeah, and it's I think the other thing, right? Success is quite boring. It's quite boring, right? And like when you're having a startup or a new thing, it's really exciting. You've got the adrenaline and everything pumping. But it's that middle part when you've got a few obstacles to face. That's when it gets a little bit boring and tedious. Most people then just leave the wall and come back and start another one. But there's another wall coming. There's another wall coming. It's just like the most successful people, they just figure out how to get around that wall or break through it. And that's what leads to success, right? But in a nutshell, I always look at, don't forget your customer. Don't forget Jane, who's 40 years old, who's overweight, who's got bad knees. You know, what do they want? What do they want? You know, if you can master that, you're good. You're going to be great.
Yeah, you're so right. And at times, sometimes I don't even think we give the opportunity for our participants or our clients to voice their opinion. You know, how often are you giving them that chance? And some of the recommendations you're going to get are going to be,
Yeah.
who knows, you know, not valuable, but
Yeah.
you will get some feedback that may really help you from, like you said, because it can be hard, I think, for those of us who have been working out for so long, and like movement is a way of life for us, to identify with the people who are stepping foot in our services. And if you're a fitness manager building those services out and developing that schedule and hiring that talent, if you're not listening and paying attention to what the clients really want and need that are in your facility now or on their way into your facility, you're in trouble, because there's so many different formats and so many different ideas out there. But is it really going to add to the
Yeah.
focus? Yeah.
Yeah. The basics, the basics still work. Like you said, human movement is human movement. Less and less of people can move properly, you know, and it's like, how do we then fix that? And that will create more success for most people in today's world, which is even more sedentary than like when I started 23 years ago. If we can create classes or around that, rather than what a lot of these people like say in different conferences, that they're probably not from the industry. They're probably just trying to make a buck and creating things, solutions, but they don't see it like we would see it, right? You know what I mean? And that's what clients, customers, they're looking for, that community, I guess, right? If you can build that community, like more than anything else. In the business world, I've seen like business succeed out of church halls, right? I mean, making plenty of money because they're great with clients, they're great with customers and the community, and the customer feels safe And that's the key thing. The customer feels safe there, rather than intimidated with massively new shiny equipment, which cost a fortune, but doesn't really do anything. Doesn't really do anything, right? So it's like, again, going back to that customer, and if you can see through the client's eyes, you can see what the client buys, is the saying. And it's if you can stay focused on that, I think most of us already have what we need. It's just making the most of that rather than thinking a new thing's going to come and solve the problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Nikki, you've gone through so much for us today, describing your core values, which those in themselves are so valuable, I think, for both, like as you mentioned, business owners, fitness managers, and then potentially the teams that we work with. We dove into understanding the margins that you need to be paying attention to. And again, I'll share that margin calculator that he shares from his website. And then I'd be very excited for any and all of you to learn more about the FBDA and get to know his team. They're a fabulous bunch of professionals, and I can see from the testimonials now that I'm on his email newsletters, the stories that people have shared and the success that they've had. I think whether it's yourself as a manager who's able to work with his team, or the business owners that you work with on a daily basis, share the information you got today, share this podcast with your owners, and we'll be here to help you. For the next episode, I'm looking forward to bringing in a couple of presenters from Idea World. So stay tuned for future episodes, most likely about signature formats and understanding how your nervous system and understanding the nervous system of your team can help you lead them better and be on the same page as a team. So as we have looking forward to future episodes, thank you so much again, Nikki, for joining us today. And I'm really looking forward to connecting more people with you.
I appreciate that. Appreciate the time, Stacey.